Okay, good morning. My daughter and I are going up to clean her room. I want to say good morning, Brielle.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so I want to talk about ADHD and how, let's see, that's not your room. That used to be your room. And about how there are positive sides to ADHD as well. And I really feel like your kids need to be aware of the positive sides because all they're getting most of the time is the negatives. Good job, Brielle. At school.
Good idea to like fold all of your see right there.
Hold on one second.
My clothes drawer.
Okay, that's a good idea. Let me record this video real quick, okay, sweetheart? So at school, all they're getting is negatives. They're getting in trouble when they are interacting with their classmates, which is the only way that we learn. The only way that I learn is when I interact with other people about the material. Otherwise, it's pointless. I'm just daydreaming otherwise. It's despite how hard I try as hard as I can, doesn't make a difference. I have to interact with the material somehow, or I interact with somebody. So they're in trouble for trying to learn, essentially, in the replicative learning model is what I call it. That's the normal environment at school. Or they're getting in trouble because, you know, they're bored and sometimes they act out or, you know, something like that. So at school, it's mostly all negative. And they're being told over and over and over again that they're not smart because they're getting their test scores back and showing terrible grades. And it really beats you down. And so your kids need to be aware there are positive sides to having ADHD. And I want to bring up one of them right now. So I talk about this in my book as well, but the idea is I classify an ADHD mind as an inventive mind. And what do I mean by inventive? Well, they just did a study. This is pretty exciting. I'll post the link to this on the page. And they had two groups of people. And now I probably should clarify this real quickly. Oh, good job, Brielle. Good job. I probably should clarify that these two groups real quick. So I have something called an inventive mind and I have something called a replicative mind. Okay, so the algorithm for behavior is different in these two groups, and the inventive mind is someone that has ADHD. Now it's only talking about ADHD, not any other issues like dyslexia or autism spectrum or anything, just the ADHD component to it. The ADHD mind, or the inventive mind, is driven by discovery and novelty, creation, contribution capacity, all these kinds of things like that. Talk about it in my book, The Criteria of Engagement. The replicative mind is driven by consequences for desired outcome. So they're like, all right, I want to make money. I'm going to go and I'm going to work at this job and I'll get the desired consequence, which is, you know, money by working. And they're driven by that. That motivates their action. That's what pushes them forward in their lives. So that's very different from an inventive mind. So replicative mind, they become masters at things. If you've got you want a heart surgeon to work on you, you want somebody that's okay doing that over and 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 over again, so many times that they become an absolute master at doing it. You want to invent something, you want to create something, you want to change things, you want to come up with solutions, you want these kinds of things like that. You want somebody that has an ADHD component, or what I like to call an inventive component to their mind. Somebody that's driven by discovery, novelty, creation, contribution capacity, these things like that. Hopefully that's making sense. So here's what they did. They took the two groups. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit ADHD in these videos because I do have ADHD. But anyway, hopefully you can still follow. Anyway, so they took these two groups. One group had all replicators, all people with replicative minds, non-ADHD. And the other group was mostly replicative minds, mostly people, but it was more of a sample of what the general population looked like, which means there was a couple people in there, maybe one at least, that had an inventive mind or had ADHD type symptoms. So these two groups then were given tasks. And yes, the group, these are kids by the way, the group with the inventive minds did get off task once in a while, and they did get distracted, and there was some disruptive things. But when it came to solving problems, the group that had the inventive mind in it, amongst all the replicators, I gotta pause for a second. I'm not trying to in any way put down people that don't have ADHD. That's not what I'm trying to do. That's not what I'm about. Replicators become masters. So I could use the word masters as well, because they have the ability to master a subject. So do people with inventive minds, but it's more difficult because when you do something over and over again, the novelty gets drained out of it, which makes it boring. Anyway, going on. So there's an inventor amongst all the masters, the master replicators. And that group actually was much, much more successful at solving problems than the other group. So I want you to bring up to your kids, talk to them about how they have very important components to their mind that help them be better at coming up with solutions to problems and better at brainstorming, better at being creative and things like that. There's all these wonderful components to their mind. Because here's what happens. After all these years going through the education system, at least 12 years, you come out the other end and you feel like your brain is worth nothing. You feel like you have no confidence. But out there are people that have ADHD who have become very successful. People with ADHD are like 300% more likely to start up a company than someone without ADHD. Kind of interesting little statistic. But these are people that have retained confidence in themselves, retained confidence in their minds. And so you need to help keep that fire alive in their kids' minds.
I do fairy.
Oh, that's a wonderful fairy. Thank you, sweetheart. So anyway, try to protect that component of their mind and build that up. Like, you're right. You do not swim as well as a dolphin, but you fly better than a dolphin. That's an analogy I use in the book. So anyway, hopefully this is helpful for you. It was for me. My dad kind of built that up in me. My dad he would kind of, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but he would say, you know, the grades are good, you do the best you can, but that's not what's going to determine whether or not you're successful in life. What's going to determine whether you're successful in life are other factors. And that he said that I had. So it helped me believe in myself. You have to have determination and hard work and having confidence in yourself and in your own brain and the brain that you have, that it can solve problems and it can do things. And anyway, best of luck to you. Bye-bye.